Kerisha, and welcome to the online learning channel. Today I'm going to be focusing on English, grade 5. So remember, English is broken up into 4 aspects, which is listening and speaking, reading and viewing, writing and presenting, and language. So I'm going to be focusing on the first 2 aspects of English today, which is listening and speaking and reading and viewing. Okay, I'm now going to take you on to a PowerPoint presentation that I have done for you. Okay, remember, listening and speaking is all about using our ears to listen, to comprehend what's being said to us, and then to speak about it, to talk about examples, talk about experiences. Okay. Okay. The first thing that we need to worry about is our objectives. What do we want to achieve in this video? What do we want to achieve by the end of this lesson? Let's look at number 1. Learners must be able to listen to a short story and give feedback. They must be able to comprehend what they have listened. They must be able to understand what happened in the story and then give feedback about the story. And number 2, learners must read the story and be able to reflect on the story or text independently. So I will be adding another story at the end, which is a story for you to read. The first story is for you to listen and speak. The second story is for you to read and understand and answer my comprehension questions. Okay, let's move on to the next. Listening and speaking. Okay, the first aspect we're going to look at is number 1, the purpose of it, right? Remember, the purpose of it is to enhance our listening and speaking skill. Okay, we listen to everything and then we speak about it. We speak about what we've learned, what we've understood. Number 2, learners must be able to listen to stories and reflect verbally by words on them and showing that you have an understanding of the text or story that you have just read. Okay, in this first week, we're going to be focusing our lesson on listening, speaking, reading, and viewing, and answering comprehension questions, right? We're going to be listening to a story, and after listening to the story, I'm going to ask you to reflect and associate what happened in the story to your own personal experience. Okay, for this listening and speaking lesson, I have found a story for you on YouTube. It's called The Strange Land. Okay, you can access the story after you're done with this video. If you want to watch it again, the link is here below. Now we're going to play the story. I want you to pay attention to the characters, the setting, and the tone of the story. After you have listened to the story, you can follow my next step. Okay, so I'm now going to play the story for you.
The Strange Land. When Dorothy was left alone, she began to feel hungry. So she went to the cupboard and cut herself some bread, which she spread with butter. She had some and gave some to Toto. After breakfast, she set about making ready for the journey to the Emerald City. Dorothy had only one other dress, but that happened to be clean and was hanging on a peg beside her bed. It was gingham, with checks of white and blue, and although the blue was somewhat faded with many washings, it was still a pretty frock. The girl washed herself carefully, dressed herself in the clean gingham, and tied her pink sunbonnet on her head. She took a little basket and filled it with bread from the cupboard, laying a white cloth over the top. Then she looked down at her feet and noticed how old and worn her shoes were. "They surely will never do for a long journey, Toto," she said. And Toto looked up into her face with his little black eyes and wagged his tail to show he knew what she meant. At that moment, Dorothy saw, lying on the table, the silver shoes that had belonged to the Witch of the East. "I wonder if they will fit me," she said to Toto. "They would be just the thing to take a long walk in, for they could not wear out." She took off her old leather shoes and tried on the silver ones, which fitted her as well as if they had been made for her. Finally, she picked up her basket. "Come along, Toto," she said. "We will go to the Emerald City and ask the Great Oz how to get back to Kansas again." She closed the door, locked it, and put the key carefully in the pocket of her dress. And so, with Toto trotting along soberly behind her, she started on her journey. There were several roads nearby, but it did not take her long to find the one paved with yellow bricks. Within a short time, she was walking briskly toward the Emerald City, her silver shoes tinkling merrily on the hard, yellow roadbed. The sun shone bright and the birds sang sweetly.
This was the first half of the video. I'm now going to move on to the second half. So we learned there was a little girl. She had a dog and she wanted to go on her journey to find her way back home.
On the hard, yellow roadbed. The sun shone bright and the birds sang sweetly, and Dorothy did not feel nearly so bad as you might think a little girl would who had been suddenly whisked away from her own country and set down in the midst of a strange land. She was surprised as she walked along to see how pretty the country was about her. There were neat fences at the sides of the road, painted a dainty blue color, and beyond them were fields of grain and vegetables in abundance. Evidently, the Munchkins were good farmers and able to raise large crops. Once in a while, she would pass a house, and the people came out to look at her and bow low as she went by, for everyone knew she had been the means of destroying the wicked witch and setting them free from bondage. The houses of the Munchkins were odd-looking dwellings, for each was round, with a big dome for a roof. All were painted blue, for in this country of the East, blue was the favorite color. Toward evening, when Dorothy was tired with her long walk and began to wonder where she should pass the night, she came to a house rather larger than the rest. On the green lawn before it, many men and women were dancing. 5 little fiddlers played as loudly as possible, and the people were laughing and singing, while a big table nearby was loaded with delicious fruits and nuts, pies and cakes, and many other good things to eat. The people greeted Dorothy kindly and invited her to supper and to pass the night with them. For this was the home of one of the richest Munchkins in the land, and his friends were gathered with him to celebrate their freedom from the bondage of the wicked witch. Dorothy ate a hearty supper and was waited upon by the rich Munchkin himself, whose name was Buck. Then she sat upon a settee and watched the people dance. When Buck saw her silver shoes, he said, "You must be a great sorceress." "Why?" asked the girl. "Because you wear silver shoes and have killed the wicked witch. Besides, You have white in your frock, and only witches and sorceresses wear white. My dress is blue and white checked, said Dorothy, smoothing out the wrinkles in it. It is kind of you to wear that, said Bock. Blue is the color of the Munchkins, and white is the witch color, so we know you are a friendly witch. Dorothy did not know what to say to this, for all the people seemed to think her a witch. And she knew very well she was only an ordinary little girl who had come by the chance of a cyclone into a strange land. L. Frank Baum. An excerpt from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
I'm now going to be going back to my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, remember I did stop by where I said after you listen to the story, we can proceed to the next step. So let's go to the next step. Let's see what the questions ask of us. Okay. If you want to still watch the story again, you're most welcome to click on the link that I have posted below for the video. But let's go on to the reflection. Reflection is what happened in the story. Let's discuss the plot. What is a plot? A plot is basically the summary of the story in a few sentences or a few lines. So let's go on. The story was based on a little girl who had been in a strange land. That's point number one. She decided to take a journey to Emerald City to try and find her way back home to Kansas. We saw that she was lost because she didn't know where she was. She got dressed in the only other dress that she owned. She took her dog Toto with her. Dorothy found a pair of silver shoes which had belonged to the witch. These shoes were there at her home on her cabinet. She put into these shoes and went along in her journey. Remember, the shoes that she had wouldn't have lasted her for her journey because it was worn out and torn. So she took the shoes that she found there and it fitted her perfectly as if it was meant for her. Dorothy then reached the city and the people thought she was a witch because she was wearing white and she had the silver shoes. Remember, they said the witch used to wear those shoes and only witches or sorcerers wear white. Okay, let's go on to our reflection questions. You need to answer this verbally on your side now. Number one, on what occasion would you wear white and what do you think it would symbolize? Remember, we wear different colors for different occasions. So why would you wear white and what would it symbolize in your culture, in your religion? Number two, why did Dorothy want to go to Emerald City? There was a reason. She was trying to get there to find, you complete the rest. How did Dorothy end up in the strange land? Towards the end, she told us how she ended up in the strange land. Why do you think the Munchkins bowed to Dorothy? Remember, as she walked through the land, they bowed to her. Tell me why you think they did that. How would you feel if people looked at you if you were somebody else? Tell me your emotions, your feelings. Okay, that was our first half of listening and speaking. Now we're going to go on to a little harder part. It's reading and viewing. Remember, now I need your help. You need your assistance, or I should say, you're going to have to read my story. You're going to have to read the questions. Then you're going to have to answer it. Let's go on. We're going to read the story. After it's done, you're going to be tasked with answering the comprehension questions. Okay, let's go to the story. The story is called The Beginning of Writing. So how did writing come about? Remember, before we even go to read a story, what are some of the clues we could get to know what the story is about? In this case, there's two important clues. Number one, the title. The title will tell us what the story is about. And number two, the pictures. Here we have pictures which looks like cave paintings on the wall. Looks like animals and people. Okay, so we know the story is about something about writing, and we can see the cave involved, and we can see people were drawing on this cave wall. So there's a meaning to it. Let's find out. You're going to read the story on your own, right? This is paragraph 1, there's paragraph 2. Going to move on to paragraph 3. Before my paragraph came about, you can see there's another picture that I put there. It's a drawing of a bee. So somewhere in the story got something to do with a bee. So you're going to read paragraph 3, paragraph 4, and we're going to move on to the questions. Number 1. Why could cave dwellers not send any written messages to one another? So there's cave dwellers there. You need to read the story, you need to answer. How did they paint? Where did they paint on? So somewhere in the story, the cave dwellers were painting. By the looks of the pictures, I'm sure we can put 1 and 2 together and understand what they're talking about. How many years ago did people learn how to grow crops? So somewhere in the story, people were growing crops. How many years ago did this happen? Why did it become necessary to keep written records? Remember, telling someone something verbally over and over might not be enough. So why do you think it became necessary in the story for them to have written records? What happened when people found a need to write more quickly? Why should we write more quickly? That's kind of an obvious reason. Link that obvious reason to the story. What did the drawing of a bee and a man mean? Remember we saw the picture of a bee? There's a question about it, so it's definitely in the story. And the last question. What do scientists believe was the reason for painting hunting scenes on these walls? So like we saw in my first 2 pictures in paragraph 1 and 2, why do you think the scientists say these paintings were important? Remember, I asked for 2 reasons. So it will be there in the story, I should say. Okay, so that comes to the end of my video. I will post the answers in the comments column. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I will post the answers, and also let us know what subjects you're interested in, which topics you're finding harder. Thank you. Bye.